Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I hope each and every one of you are doing well today. You should check on the description box below. It says I was going to air at 5 o'clock p.m., but also it said I may actually air this video prior to 5 o'clock p.m. Because I have something I have to do this evening, so I just didn't know exactly when I was going to do this, and so you've been warned, and here I am. I hope everybody's doing well today, and what I want to do is essentially I want to talk about as to why I'm doing this video on why we don't really have socialism in this country in the way that other societies around the world do. And basically it comes down to this. It comes down to things like the way that our electoral system, the way it's set up, the way that the media manipulates the narratives and big money that dominates the capitalist culture that exists in this country in a way that is toxic to people. And as a socialist, I do not want to tell people that they must get rid of the thought crime of being socialist. Being capitalist or what have you. If you believe in capitalism, I disagree with you, but it is your right to believe that's the best way to provide for society, even though I think someone is wrong. But I also believe that socialists are within their rights to have that struggle and to go and to basically advocate that plan for people, and for people to convince people that socialism is the way to enhance happiness and societal prosperity that is fair for all. And that's where I stand, and that is the hill that I die on. So in America, when it comes to socialism, and first, I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself from a previous post, because a few days, I guess about a week ago, I did a video entitled "Everything That's Best About America is Socialist." And even though I stand by that video, people don't realize what is around them that is socialist. Whether we're talking about something as basic as your Social Security check, or your Medicare, or you going down to the library, getting that lender book, or the local sewage being taken care of, the trash being picked up, the post office delivering your mail, the fire department that takes care of a fire once there's a fire. Yeah, and there are people out there that honestly are, believe it or not, we've got an Overton window that is so toxically right-wing that there are people out there that thinks that publicly funded roads are woke. That's where we're at in this country right now. And this is why this channel and other channels in their own way needs to go and convince people that we're here to help one another. And that's what we're here to do, to enhance the standard of living for all by working together to make sure that standard of living is realized for all. And I make no apologies for that. But for some reason, for some people that makes me an evil person. Gosh. You have to have heard some of the things that people have said over the years about me for having just having that basic opinion. But we'll get started. And as I don't want it to sound like I am still an unhinged Bernie bro. But I am going to go and give Bernie Sanders just a little bit of credit here that he brought back a national conversation that was lost for decades. A conversation that was introduced by people like Eugene Victor Debs. And a conversation that was, by the time, well, it was slowly disappearing from the national dialogue, and it was totally almost gone by the time Reagan came along. And the Democratic Party, which was supposed to represent everything you can imagine to reverse Ronald Reagan's assault on the limited gains that was done by socialism, that was watered down into FDR's New Deal. Because frankly, it was Eugene Victor Debs, it was Norman Thomas, it was the socialist movement, Robert La Follette, it was the trade unions, it was the anarchists. With due respect to Marxist-Leninists in the United States, I may disagree with. The communists too also played an important part in fighting for labor rights, fighting for civil rights, fighting for environmental sustainability. Later on down the road, fighting for feminism and LGBTQ rights and immigrant rights, and and consistently fighting against war. Although the movement does have some divisions when it came to things like that. Unfortunately, some people are tied into the mainstream progressive liberal movement, and then they'll take some mistaken positions, like supporting the proxy war of U.S. and NATO against Russia, which doesn't mean that I'm necessarily endorsing Russia, but endorsing the Ukraine proxy war is insane for sure. And this is not to put down and vilify people from the Ukraine either. It's just that what the U.S. have done after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where Russia was pushed into a corner, where this whole unfortunate event took place last year, and arguably has been taking place since the year 2014, when the CIA toppled the government of the Ukraine and put in Zelensky and basically normalized a right-wing government with neo-Nazis crawling around, where they banned 13 political parties and banned collective bargaining, banned the Russian Orthodox Church, silence media that's oppositional, and in some cases actually even celebrate historical figures that collaborated with Hitler, such as Stepan Bandera, and all of that. Whereas the media has been trying to cover up the neo-Nazi elements in the Ukraine, and of course, not to mention the famous, we're going to call it the thrill list, because I'm afraid that if I call it what it is, that I could get silenced and punished. So we got to use buzzwords and substitute words these days. So the Ukraine has a thrill list that Roger Waters and people like Noam Chomsky's on, our Jimmy Dore and our Aaron Mattei is on, and various people around the world, they're on this list. Even a douchebag like Henry Kissinger is on this thrill list. So anyhow, I side point at myself as I normally do. But we're getting back to American socialism. And so Eugene Debs kind of started the national conversation. Bernie Sanders restarted it. And unfortunately, Bernie Sanders got cucked by the Democratic Party. I'm not going to say he intentionally sheep herded, but unfortunately he did sheep herd. It was the outcome. The Bernie movement is pretty much, a done deal. And the remnants of it is divided between being normie Democrats now and those of us that are like, the hell with this shit. And we're going to go and vote our hopes, not our fears. So some of us, like myself, we're voting for Cornel West, which I think, in my case, I think he is the ongoing tradition of Eugene Debs at this point, right now as we speak. But here's the thing. He could be a name changer, a game changer, I meant to say, with the Green Party, which is the largest third party of the left outside the Democratic Party that has a ghost of a chance of breaking through the two-party system, even as rigged as the two-party system is against third parties. And Cornel West is being a household name, unlike someone like Howie Hawkins or Jill Stein or people like David Cobb in the past or what have you. I mean, people know who Cornel West is, and that's a good thing. People knew who Ralph Nader was when he ran as the Green Party candidate years ago. It's just that I think Ralph Nader needed to keep doing this until he could pass the torch to someone like Jesse Ventura if he would have run, or someone like Cornel West, which I'm glad he is running. And so he's basically a successor to Bernie Sanders in that regard. One could say a better Bernie in that regard, and that's the way I see Cornel West. He's a better Bernie. So there is that here in America, and so in America, we our options are very limited right now. I mean, now abroad, what do we have abroad? Abroad, you take a very close ally like the UK, they got their problems. But, after World War II, Clement Attlee, and that's the gentleman in black and white there with the bald gentleman on the left. Everybody knows who destroyed socialism in the UK in the last 40 years, and that was started with Margaret Thatcher. But nobody knew. Hardly any Americans knew who brought the socialism to the UK, and it was seriously brought into the UK after World War II by what I would call Britain's better FDR, and that was an actual socialist, because FDR was not a socialist. He took some modest socialist programs and watered it down into FDR's New Deal. Clement Attlee, however, was a socialist, and as the leader of the Labour Party, he had a massive victory, defeated Winston Churchill, and implemented the welfare state, implemented the National Health Service, expanded the unions, nationalized a good chunk of the British economy to refurbish the infrastructure, and they were called national corporations. And they were called public corporations. And these public corporations were the former owners of these public corporations, the government itself, and the unions. And they came to a consensus on how they could go and refurbish these industries to make it for the common good for the people of the UK. And it worked. By the 1950s, Britain had a robust middle-class majoritarian society. And it was so successful that conservative Prime Minister Harold Macmillan said in his campaigns, "You never had it so good," and that was a compliment to Clement Attlee. Harold Macmillan basically acknowledged the socialist reforms of Clement Attlee as a positive thing, in the same way that Dwight Eisenhower acknowledged FDR's New Deal as positive, because he once said that if you are opposed to the New Deal, you're really not a part of the normal mainstream part of American society. He did say that in the 1950s. He realized that. But that's where the Republican Party was in the 1950s. The Republican Party, in a good way, was indistinguishable from the Democratic Party, in the sense that there were liberal Republicans who were just as okay with the New Deal, pro-union and almost social democratic outlook as some of the New Deal liberal Democrats back in the 50s, even in the 60s. And, little by little over the years, and by the time Reagan came along, things just changed for the worse. But Jeremy Corbyn, the gentleman here on the right, was kind of just as Bernie Sanders was kind of like a reaction to Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton. Jeremy Corbyn was a reaction to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, who basically look at the Thatcher model and wanted to continue that bullshit. And it was called New Labor. Just like the Democrats, they took the Reagan model in the 1980s and it was called the New Democrats in the United States. And it was championed by a group called the Democratic Leadership Council. Let me go ahead and do this here. So that giving you kind of a Western look of socialism by America's closest ally right there. I will also give you what I would say another view of socialism, Marxist-Leninism, with obviously Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong being the main faces of what one called communism. And as I said, there's democratic socialism and social democracy. That's the more mainstream Western variety of it. And there's communism, and there's been a split in the movement. And so my point is that in their own way, they have built their societies too. I mean, Russia was able to build their society, their infrastructure and everything, and modernize their society. Same thing with China. I have some problems with the way that they went about it as far as the civil liberties aspects of this. But at the same time, I understand that they were also under siege by the U.S. and by a lot of forces of the West, which was also just as wrong. And there are communists or Marxist-Leninists that are adjacent to the movement that may take issue with these figures, such as Leon Trotsky. And then there's Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, who had his own particular vision of communism. And then there's people like Nelson Mandela of South Africa, that when he was released from prison, came to the United States, a lot of Americans were giving him a hard time about his communist ideology, which they had no empathy toward him when he praised Muammar Gaddafi, Yasser Arafat, and Fidel Castro. And I remember that and trying to explain that to people at the time, that I see and understood why he did it. Still understand it to this day. And when you had the West that didn't give a damn about the treatment of blacks in South Africa, and you had Fidel Castro, you had Yasser Arafat, you had Muammar Gaddafi, who cared about the mistreatment of blacks in South Africa. You think that Nelson Mandela is going to go and reach out and embrace the very people who are indifferent or hate him? Please. So anyway, so there is that vision. And democratic socialism or social democracy is in borrowed time and rocky roads right now. And I would say that 30 years ago, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and with China adopting a largely capitalist model, that there's just a handful of communist states around in the world. So there are people at the American right wing who claims that communism is running amok and what have you, and just like get over yourselves, folks. I'm referring to the right wing and their paranoia. And whenever they criticize China and what they're supposedly doing to the United States, and they call it communism. When if you want to go and make that argument, they're just perhaps taking something that's very American, like it's capitalism, and using it to their own advantage. And that's what each society do. Every society has a right to look out for their own interests. But the United States is very arrogant about this sort of thing. And they feel like, they have a right to do whatever the hell they want, and no country has the right to respond. So there is also that. Now, what I want to talk about is basically my next point is the two-party system. So we need to get to that right now, because I swear that I will never ever vote for anybody in the two-party system again. The two-party system is cancer to me. Nothing can get done as long as we have a two-party system. Now, I knew this 30 years ago when I was a partisan Democrat, and I started to flirt with independent politics. But as I flirted with independent politics, I still voted for the occasional Democrat. And I made the argument back in the 1990s. I made the argument, well, if you got a politician like Paul Wellstone in Minnesota, it obviously makes sense to go and vote Democrat, or back in 2018, I would have said, obviously, if you live in the 14th district in New York, this is 2018 Willie Bragg saying this, not 2023 Willie Bragg. Oh, if you live in the 14th district in New York, it obviously makes sense to support AOC. And I would have said that in 2020. But by 2022, after she fucked the rail workers and gave money to neo-Nazis, not saying that she endorsed it per se, but the fact that she went out to the military-industrial complex and went out to Nancy Pelosi and decided to go and vote for funding of the Ukraine, military aid to the Ukraine, it was just kind of like, okay, the hell with AOC. Don't care for her anymore. She's just another Democrat, maybe with a pretty face, but looks and charms get you but so far. And I used to be like cheer for her, but I don't care now. She's on TV and she graced my computer every day, and I'm just like, oh God, her again. And I'm just kind of like sick of it, because she lost all the credibility with me. She lost. I mean, now is she Marjorie Taylor Greene? Of course not. But is she all that far removed from being Nancy Pelosi? She's basically on her way to becoming Nancy Pelosi. She's basically a female Barack Obama at this point. And you got to do better than that. And she's not capable of doing better than that. Same with the rest of the squad. Same with Bernie. They all kind of cucked to the Democratic leadership. And it hurts me to say that, because I was very excited years ago about this. And I actually even thought for 5 minutes that it was possible that there could be an effective civil war inside of the Democratic Party, and that we could go and ruthlessly take over these assholes in the Democratic Party and whip these right-wing Democrats and these corporate Democrats into adopting a basic social democratic program. I actually thought this for 5 minutes, and what a fucking moron I was. So, and I apologize for ever thinking that. And as of last year, I'm just like, I'm never going to go and vote for another Democrat again. I mean, probably the last Democrat I felt good about last year for 5 seconds, I felt good about John Fetterman, but he disappointed me right away. So there's not a Democrat that I could say woohoo about. So no more Democrats for me. And that doesn't mean I love Republicans. I want to make that clear. But here's the thing about the Democrats. The Democrats end up doing the dirty work of Republicans. So when some people get upset that some podcasters on the left say, well, the Democrats sometimes prove to be worse than the Republicans, they're not saying I prefer Republicans to the Democrats. What they're saying is that what the Republicans can't get through legislatively, sometimes it ends up being that the Democrats get that crap across. I'll give you an example. NAFTA. Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush had orgasms thinking about the North American free trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. Well, guess what? It was passed under Bill Clinton. The crime bill, the Biden crime bill, a crime bill that expanded the death penalty to 50 crimes. While Republicans sit there and tell you that the Democrats are abolishing police departments in the inner cities and all that, the same fucking Republicans who will tell you they're getting rid of law enforcement that wants to abolish the FBI. I want to abolish the FBI too for different reasons, but these same Republicans, they should have been happy with Bill Clinton and Joe Biden as a senator with the crime bill. They should have been happy because, this crime bill, as I said, it did a lot to incarcerate Blacks and Latinos. It did a lot to speed up executions. It was this harsh law and order on crack. It basically weaponized local law enforcement. The very things that Donald Trump said he wants to see happen to law enforcement, it took Democrats to make it happen. But apparently, if you say this, you're enabling Republicans and you're just being divisive and you're secretly pro Republican. I would never be pro Republican. I would never be for a political party that wants to criminalize the trans community out of existence. A political party that wants to basically, arrest Black people for walking on the streets, minding their own business. A political party that basically wants to privatize the entire New Deal gains that was made in the 1930s. And that's what Republicans want to do. But you know what? They get to do that with Democrats. They know how to make the Democrats not have balls. Got to hand it to the Republicans. And what has happened since 1980 with Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan did a lot of damage. Bill Clinton continued. And so we live under what I call a Reagan-Clinton consensus right now. And I hate it. And the two-party system is rigged. And both political parties are right-wing. The Republicans are basically fascists, and the Democrats have basically become the party of Ronald Reagan, but with a rainbow flag furled around them. When I say rainbow flag, I do not mean that like I'm disparaging the LGBTQ community, but I mean that by the Democrats who likes to virtue signal. They'll hold on to the virtue signal to kind of, they'll give you a little bit of sugar to try to cover up for their true right-wing agenda. And that's what it comes down to. And you need to tell people to reject both parties. They need to be rejected wholeheartedly. That there's nothing to be gained by voting for for either party. If you're tired of the Democrats and you feel the compulsion to vote Republican, you're still enabling bullshit. If you're a Republican and you don't like how right wing they are, and you go to the Democrats, well, here's the thing: you're still enabling the system. No labels. It's just the same asshole Democrats and Republicans with a polite fake smile on their face. That's not any better. That is not any better. And so, because of this, we have declining unions. The unions are in decline, serious decline, to the point that they're almost non-existent. Now, you're going to hear some Republicans that will sit there and be like, well, you're right about workers' rights being infringed upon. We got to do something about that, about these unions. They need to come back. But we got to get rid of the public sector unions first. Then you need to tell those Republicans to fuck off, because if they want to go and get rid of the public sector unions, all that's going to do is just make the unions even more weak, so the unions can almost not exist. It's the next step away from, you might as well just ban unions, because the public sector unions are half of the labor movement in this country. This half of the labor movement. We're talking about municipal, state, and federal employees. Consists of public employees in unions. And the rest of them, the other half, spread out throughout the United States. Very few in the South, in the private sector. Believe me, I'm angry. I worked in a unionized job for 20 years, and I got laid off 5 years ago. I have a pension, thankfully. But, you know, I'm gonna tell you, it's as different as night and day when you don't have when your job is non-union. Thankfully, where I do work, the management are okay, and my pay, I mean, I do okay. I'm not poor, but the point is, you do have less rights, and there is a difference between night and day when you don't have a union around. Even if you're in a union job and there's some bullshit that exists in a union job, a weak union or even a union that can be lame at times is better than having no rights at all. I promise you that. So we're talking about, because of the two-party system, we have declining unions. We have no universal health care. We have, no free college. We have no guaranteed paid vacation time or family leave or anything of that nature. And so, and what do we have? This is what we had to show for it for the past 40 years. Outsourcing, and then Americans with not just one job that doesn't pay well, but with maybe 2, maybe 3 jobs. And they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and they're working harder, and they're working longer with a horrible work schedule, and they're being paid less, and in some cases not even getting the benefits. And they're physically tired, and they're physically less healthy as a result. And it's just what we do to American workers in this country is evil. And then people know this, and what do? Both parties, they go and have us divided with the culture war issues. Whatever you think of abortion rights, here's the thing. Just got to realize, if you're pro-life, if you're pro-life and you hate abortion, Medicare for all is a pro-life issue. Being opposed to capital punishment is a pro-life issue. Being opposed to torture in Guantanamo Bay is a pro-life issue. Being opposed to war, drone strikes, or invading another country, or sanctions against another country, that's also pro-life, as much as that tissue called a fetus. And so if you're going to go and be against abortion, you need to be consistent, but you also need to be patient with those who are pro-choice. Now, I happen to be pro-choice and all of that, but I'm just saying, and for those who are pro-choice, you also have to be patient with those who are pro-life. Some who may have an objection. Not all of them want to subjugate women. Some people think there is a line. You can have a debate about that. I don't want to get into that particular culture war issue, but that is kind of one of those issues where people get all riled up. Now, where I'm less understanding are the homophobes out there, the ones that want to criminalize and execute gay people and treat them like shit. They can go to hell, and all of that. At the same time, saying this, why I am a lifelong supporter of LGBTQ rights, and I mean that in every capacity. I was an early supporter of same-sex marriage, and supporter fully across the board. I'm even on board with transgender women in sports. I won't cancel you out if you disagree with me about transgender women in sports. If you're, pretty much, on board with freedom across the board. But here's the thing. You got some old-fashioned people who are a little uptight, that they don't mean any harm, and they're a little, they may be a little uptight or a little socially conservative, and they just not quite ready for that. That's a little different from those who are just screaming from the pulpit or some TV evangelical with this QAnon bullshit about them trying to groom little children or whatever. The hell with those people, So, and so there is give and take in that regard. But equality for LGBTQ people, that's not a divisive issue. That's something that should be achieved. And, if you're not LGBTQ and you don't agree with it, well, don't be LGBTQ. That's what I have to say. But here's the thing. The people on the top, they want to divide us all, every one of us, and we're talking about the people on the top. Some of those people on the top are Trump supporters. Some of these people on the top are Clinton and Biden supporters. And they may hate each other, but they love the green in their wallet more than they hate each other. And they're laughing at us. The chuds with the little red MAGA hats and the shit libs with the pink pussy hats, just sitting there tearing at each other. They love that shit. And because guess what? Workers in this country, people from across the board, we're basically fucking each other over because deep down we got more in common than we do differences with each other. Some people are like, "Oh, you're just being a class reductionist." Well, I don't care if that's what you think. That's what you think. That's what you think. I think that when we all do well, we all do well, and I do believe in class struggle more so than I've ever had before. And I've been a socialist for the past 3 decades. I'm thinking more and more that we have to focus on class struggle. And my socialism used to be, well, take the current system, add a single payer system, add some unions adjacent to the present capitalist system, and we're basically Scandinavia. Whoopee. And it will be okay if that's what we are, but I would say we need to go further than that. We do. We need to go further than that. We have a climate crisis and all that. So, and we need to use these resources responsibly. So I do call for the social ownership of a lot of the energy sector. It will help with jobs. You'll be able to have jobs available. You nationalize the oil companies. You can use the oil responsibly. You can even provide a universal basic income to the people of this country. One of the reasons why I hate Hillary Clinton, she destroyed the government of Libya, a country that was an oil-producing country that provided a UBI check to their citizens, provided universal health care, that sort of thing. It was kind of like Africa's version of Titoism, Tito of Yugoslavia. It was sort of like an Afro-Islamic version of it in Libya under Muammar Gaddafi. And that was eradicated, and Hillary Clinton cackled about it. And what do we have now? Libya became a slave state. And, Muammar Gaddafi had his asshole stabbed as a result. So I'm making these points here, and the thing about it is we have a declining middle class, So, when we think about that declining middle class, the whole 1950s Leave It to Beaver sort of culture that existed, where you graduated high school or graduated from college, and you could work 30 years with one salary to provide for a family of 3, 4, or 5, and you can have that nice home and 2 cars and send your kids to college and take that vacation twice a year or 3 times a year. And you could have more or less a good life, under my vision, it would not just be for, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. It would be for everybody. But point I'm trying to make is that middle class dream can come back, and you make it for everybody. Now we go into semi-modern times, and one can argue modern times. And this is the house here of the TV show, popular TV show from the late 80s throughout the 1990s called Married with Children. Now, how is it? And I know it's a fictional TV show, but how is it that Al Bundy, who's a shoe salesman, could afford a middle-class home? Nowhere in this country could a shoe salesman afford a home like this today. But how is it that he could have back then? Well, I don't think a shoe salesman could have ever afforded a home like this back then. What I think happened, and the show took place in Chicago, and I know it's a fictional show, but I'm sort of projecting and inferring what I think happened, possibly. He became a shoe salesman probably sometime in the early 80s, and he had a unionized job that was he was laid off. That's probably what happened. Al was laid off from his unionized job when he graduated high school. He went into, I don't know, steel or whatever, or worked at an auto plant or worked at whatever company that happens to be unionized, and did very well and was able to provide for his family and kids. And he got laid off. There was this thing called deindustrialization. It started happening in the 70s a little bit, but it went on hyperspeed under Ronald Reagan, where these states like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin and Michigan, a lot of the industrial sector just dried up. They dried up, and now a lot of these places are desolate and everything. And we are in a situation where we have a rigged economy where the ultra wealthy works at every opportunity to deprive our citizens of all kinds of opportunities that was once readily available to us. I mean, to the point where they will go and use a buffer zone like a temp agency. Because heavens forbid we go and give you benefits or anything like that. I mean, this is the kind of crap that they will pull on people. I worked several jobs in the 1990s that had temp agencies, and so I know how they operated. And I kind of resented the whole concept of it. And when they lay you off, and then you're waiting for another job, and then the temp agency will go and yell at you like it's your fault about whatever. And then, when I decided I was not going to deal with a temp agency anymore, they'll call me back and fuss at me about something. I have to tell them to fuck off. So, the temp agencies are just, I would do away with temp agencies if I could. I mean, I think they need to be abolished too. So, there is that. I could go on with everything that's wrong with this country and all of that. But the point is that, that in a nutshell, we don't have socialism in this country. Why? Because we don't have a labor party in this country. We don't have we don't have something like the New Democratic Party of Canada. We don't have something like that here in the United States. In Canada, now I don't like Justin Trudeau at all. Not at all. I wish he'll go. But Canada is in slightly better shape than the United States, although I got some problems with the way they're doing shit in Canada today. But the point is that some of the problems that we had that they don't have over there is because they have more than two parties. So in some ways, Canada is more democratic than we are. In some ways, they're not. We're still better when it comes to speech, although Democrats and Republicans like to take that away from us as well. With Democrats, they're pro-censorship. At least they're honest that they're pro-censorship. It burns me up when Republicans who claim they're for free speech. Well, I ain't no snowflake. I'm for free speech. I'm for my free speech. But I'm going to take away your free speech. And that's the Republican variation of free speech. The Democrats' way of taking your free speech is, I'm going to take away your free speech. because you're toxic. I mean, that's the difference between the Democrats and Republicans. And that one, I'll have to respect the Democrats for their honesty, and I'll have to tell the Republicans to fuck off for their hypocrisy, their partisan hypocrisy. So, so there is that as well. So, I ranted on and on and on. Okay, we have here on the chat line. Let me scroll back up. We have Miguel. Hey, how are you doing? We have Daniel Barry Sports Highlights. How are you doing too? Can't really have socialism with greed running amok. Yeah, we have a society where it's in our culture. It really is. We have Blue Moon Red Wine. How are you doing? How are you doing today, Lucy? Let's see here. We have, let's see. Comrade Kitty says, hi, Miguel, Daniel, Lucy, and Willie. And I am saying hi back to you, Comrade Kitty. Let's see here. And Lucy says, I really feel like between NAFTA and the crime bill, Iraq, Libya, and R's and D's are tied. Maybe with the nuclear war thing, Democrats are worse. And I think you're right, Lucy, in that regard. I mean, don't know anything that top nukes. You see, this is the only area where I think that Trump is actually going to be better if he comes back to the White House. I'm not voting for Trump. But if Trump wins, I think the one area where he'll be better than Biden is on Russia. And no, it's not because I think that it's not because I think that Trump sucks Vladimir Putin's dick. It's because Trump foreign policy is not that of typical Washington, D.C. consensus. He was kind of at odds with the military-industrial complex. It wasn't a perfect foreign policy. I dislike the fact that he sold arms to Saudi Arabia, overseeing a genocide in Yemen. I hate the fact that he drone strike at Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad, the Iranian general. I dislike the fact that he moved the embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. These things are the fact that, especially the fact that he tried to topple the government of Venezuela by declaring Juan Guaido as the president when Nicolas Maduro is the president. So he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But was he less a warmonger than George W. Bush, or Barack Obama, or Joe Biden? Objectively speaking, he was less than that. Still too much for my liking, but less of a warmonger than Bush, Obama, and Biden. What's up, guys? Says Purple Philosophy. Let me see here. Comrade Kitty, everybody's greeting everybody. So we're just one happy family, aren't we? Woohoo, people in the chat, let's get freaky. Yeah, getting freaky. That sounds freaky's nice. Freaky is nice. Whenever I do get freaky, it is nice. We got geometry on our side now. All right. Let's see here. If y'all aren't doing anything at 6 p.m., Rick Walker will be live backup channel from Maverick Multimedia. Got banned for a week. Let's see, again, the name of the backup channel is Rick Walker. Okay, I will probably be taking a nap because I got to get up by 7 o'clock to go to work, and even by 7 o'clock, as I'm getting ready, I'll be watching Due Dissidence. Let's go, because I'm planning an after party already, and I've been tinkering on my bicycle camper. All right. I got a lot of socializing to make up in the real world. Darian balanced socialization. That's not torture, dress and fun. 100,000 for every innocent man, woman. So help me. Okay. I love you to death, Choosy Heretics, Chooses Carnation Revolution now, but I'm going to scroll around, see if there are other people on the chat lines here. So, looks like that's about it for the time being. Tell you folks, I'm going to log off shortly, but I'm going to give you some announcement real quick. I think that Tuesday there will be an interview with Dolores Pierce from Around the World with D's in France. I had a StreamYards issue last Tuesday. I'm hoping that is resolved. I think it looks like it's resolved. So that there should be a show at 4 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. And possibly on August 10th, and that's to be determined, Joey McLaurin and I will be discussing the potential of single-payer healthcare in New York State. He's got something to say about that. So we'll be talking about that if he's planning to do it. We had a tentative date. He was supposed to do it yesterday. He had the stomach virus, and he's been on the show before. So, but anyhow, and by the way, on the description box below, Jimi Sunderland, who will be my co-host for Braglands coming out September 1st. The platforms will be set up in the next 2 weeks on the YouTube, the Twitch channel, the Facebook, the Twitter page, the whole 9 yards will be set up between now and the next 2 weeks. But and it's going to be Jimi Sunderland from KRTD Media and myself co-hosting every Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And and that's going to be our new program. And so we'll be setting everything up. Take a look down below at my description box. She does the graphics for my program. Please follow her on all her platforms. Please do, because she's trying to pick up more subscribers and followers. So follow her on Twitch, especially on Twitch. Follow her on Image Productions on YouTube as well. And follow her also on Twitter and Facebook and any other platform that she's on to help her out. She's great. She's awesome. So, and yes, and speaking of Jimi, I will be joining with Jimi and Warren. Looks like not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after next for the Secret Show. I will be returning back as a guest on the Secret Show. So. There is that, and I am going to nap right now. So each and every one of you, remember, if you like what you heard, please press like and comment. Comment any ways you disagree with what I have to say. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, muckrakers of our time. Also, subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. Subscribe to me, hit the notification bell and follow me on Twitch and Twitter and Facebook. And I'm going to eventually use that Rumble channel that you see in the description box below. So if you haven't followed me on Rumble, please follow me there as well. And until next time, I am Willie Bragg. I am Willie Bragg. And I will be seeing you all next time. And let me do this here. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. And reject corporate media, because they have nothing to offer us. Not a damn thing. I always forget to say that part. Take care. Bye-bye.